Hello, everybody. Welcome to the March 2023 TechTitans webinar. This webinar is a collaboration between OPSRC and OKSTE. I'm Kurt Bernhardt, the Technology Director for Oklahoma Public School Resource Center. Kashawn Hawkins is our Instructional Technology Specialist, and together we make up the OPSRC Tech Team. We provide ed tech assistance to all of our members. We have a growing collection of resources on our website at opsrc.net/technology. Check it out. This presentation is being recorded and will also be added to that collection. So our Tech Titan for today is Kasey Bell. Kasey Bell is a former middle school teacher turned award-winning digital learning coach at Shake Up Learning. She is also an international speaker, author of Blended Learning with Google, Google A to Z, and Shake Up Learning. She's a blogger at shakeuplearning.com and host of the Shake Up Learning Show podcast. Kasey proves why we should never settle for the boring when it comes to bringing out the very best in our students, and we should always strive to shake up learning. It's my pleasure to introduce Kasey Bell.
Hey, y'all. Thank you so much. I am excited to share this with you. I do have slides to share first. So that link that you see right there, shakeup.link/Titans, should take you to the published version of my Google slide deck. And there are tons of other links and resources in there. I kind of load up all of my slide decks so you can always come back to these and, go further. So when you're looking for additional resources, you're like, what did she say? You can always come back to this. And it will remain at the bottom on the middle of most of the slides as well. So if anybody comes in late, it's there. And if somebody hasn't already dropped it in the chat, there we go. Okay, I got the chat open. So thank you so much for inviting me to share. This one in particular is definitely a work that I have put together over many years as both a teacher and a tech coach, which I call myself a tech coach. I've had official titles that have varied, but that's essentially my thing. That's what I love to do, is to help teachers learn how to use technology, but doing it meaningfully can look very different. And especially with the term blended learning, that can mean many things to different people. So I wanted to put together a framework to help teachers understand what that could look like and really break down some of the barriers that we've had in education. And some of those are are preconceived barriers, and some of those are true barriers. But I can be found at Shake Up Learning. If you're looking for anything after today, shakeuplearning.com. You can find me at Shake Up Learning pretty much across social media. I do a lot of Google sharing as well. I do have some Google certifications and talk a lot about using Google tools in the classroom, and you'll find it kind of naturally comes up in everything that I talk about. So I know we have probably lots of Google users as well, but if you're looking for any additional resources, I will send you there to Shake Up Learning. But we are here to talk about how to go beyond just blended and to make it dynamic. And dynamic is sort of my own term for making the learning meaningful and important and engaging, and really bringing together several different things that we're going to see as we dig into the dynamic learning model and framework today. Feel free to ask questions though as we go. Y'all, I am pretty laid back and don't mind being interrupted if something isn't working properly or you don't understand, or of course, if you can't hear me or have any trouble, please let me know. So if you follow along in the slides, you'll be able to click on some of these resources. And the first resource here is this Shake Up Learning Quick Start Guide. And this is like a cheat sheet to my first book. The first book is called Shake Up Learning: Practical Ideas to Move Learning from Static to Dynamic, where I introduce this framework and model. So it very much goes with the content I'm going to share with you today. But if you want to get that, it's a PDF download that you can grab and be added to my, I didn't mean to actually open that up, be added to my email list. So if you're not on my email list, I do share lots of goodies each week. So I have two books and a supplement is what I would call Googled A to Z, but Shake Up Learning. And then the follow-up was Blended Learning with Google, which is really about taking all the things from the first book and then how to use Google tools with the framework. So just to give you an idea of where some of this content is coming from, and if you're interested in exploring those books. But the first thing we have to talk about is the fact that learning has changed. And in fact, since I first created this slide and wrote these books, many things have changed in education, in the world, and in technology. And that's what's so difficult with technology changing so fast and with learning basically at our fingertips. What does that mean? How does that translate into the classroom? How do we prepare students for an ever-changing world? And I think that means that we have to take a step back from some of the old school ideas and lessons that we have done and really focus on what's going to help our students reach that learning goal. We have to let go of some of the ideas of rote memorization. There's really not a need to just memorize content anymore, but to have a deeper understanding and to actually really dig in with bigger questions and more problem-based and project-based learning to help our students survive in whatever this world is turning out to be. And this is printed on the front of the book. And it's also just something that I say quite a bit, is that technology is not a solution. It's not the magic bullet. It's not even the Band-Aid to solve the problems that we have in education. But what it presents us with is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to do things differently. It's an opportunity to learn in new ways. It's an opportunity to engage our students. And honestly, it's an opportunity to do what's best for kids, because if we are ignoring the way the world works and the technology that is at our fingertips and not embedding that into the learning in our classroom, we're not doing a good job of preparing our students for the future. So we have to think of all of the opportunities before us. And I share this one a lot. There are missed opportunities. I like to keep a positive note on things, but teachers ask questions of me all the time. I get them social media, email, you name it, wherever. And a lot of times the question tells me a lot about where that teacher is in their journey and where they are in terms of understanding technology integration and what that means. So this question here has been summarized to protect the innocent, but let me just read this one to you real quick. In the past, I've had students create Google Slides presentations and share them with me for a project. This week, I assign the same project and have several students who are showing signs they're probably copying work from former students. How can we prevent this from happening? Well, I knew exactly how I wanted to answer this question as soon as I saw it, but I took a step back and I wanted to see, okay, how did other teachers see this? What kind of comments came rolling in? And most of the comments were all about the cheating. You can't use Google. It's too easy to cheat. You need to lock this down. You need this plagiarism checker. Is that what's wrong with this assignment? No. My guess is this is an assignment that was probably done way back even in the PowerPoint days, put on a thumb drive, and they have just kept iterating it and then trying to use Google Slides to do the same old assignment. And it just doesn't work anymore. And even now with the lens of what AI is bringing to the forefront, and in terms of the cheating question that we're still talking about. And don't get me wrong, I do believe we need to keep students in check, but cheating has always been a problem. It's not new and it's not going anywhere. But what we have to do is rethink our assignments. We can't keep doing the same things the same way with new technology. We have to do new things with new technology. So here was my response. If the assignment can be easily duplicated, we need to consider more original product types, incorporate choice of topic and/or tool, and require reflection where they explain their ideas and reflect on their learning. Those are the types of the assignments that are at least much more difficult to duplicate, to copy, and they're not so cookie cutter that we can find them online just anywhere. So we have to think about what types of assignments we're giving our students. I want to introduce you to the idea of dynamic learning and to think about this as moving from the old school static way of teaching to dynamic learning, and using those words very purposefully, talking about learning versus teaching, and the teacher taking on the role of the facilitator. The teacher not being just the keeper of all the information, because guess what? We can't keep all the information anymore. That just doesn't work. But what we can do is facilitate the learning. We can help our students learn in new ways and engage them. So let's go through some definitions here. So here is my working definition for static learning. It's learning that lacks movement, action, or change. And with this unengaging model of education, learning happens in short bursts, often demonstrated through one and done activities, short-term assignments or worksheets, even digital worksheets, which are confined within the traditional bounds of the school system, school day, and the school walls. Dynamic blended learning is the opposite. This is characterized by constant change in activity, growing and evolving over time. It's learning that can take place anywhere, anytime. It's personalized and differentiated. It's learner-centered, giving students choice and embedding communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity skills where they align with the learning goals. And it also extends beyond the traditional bounds of the school day, schedule, physical walls, and even the physical notion of hard and fast due dates. So just, full confession here, my classroom when I first started teaching was very much on the static side. I really didn't know any better. I had never seen it done it any differently. I was following what my mentor was doing. And I kind of learned things the hard way, is what I say. But when we're talking about being more dynamic, we are moving past that substitution level of, just replacing paper. We want to do and create previously unconceived of things. I want you to think of dynamic learning as something that's boundless with limitless opportunities. You aren't still on MySpace, so why are you still handing out worksheets? And I always secretly wonder if someone is still on MySpace, because I think Justin Timberlake bought it and it's like some music website or something now. But the point being, as the world progresses and as technology changes, we have to keep changing. And I have a pet peeve of, how do I put a worksheet in Google Classroom, was like a question I got several times every single day, and I really got tired of it because there's so much more you can do than just digitize a worksheet. And so, not knocking just worksheets, but there's just so many ways that we can take those old school ideas and make them more dynamic. So I created this graphic. It's in a blog post that is also linked here, but it's also printed in the book just to show dynamic versus static. Okay, here's the old static lesson, and here's a new way that we can make it more dynamic. So let me go through some examples for you here. So I'm going to start with the instead of side. That's what I'll say, the not that. So instead of the research paper on World War II, don't get me wrong, I still believe in research. I still believe in writing, and World War II is definitely a topic that kids need to learn about. But and keep in mind, this book was written in 2018, so it does say Skype, but we can replace that now with every other tool that has come out since then. A Zoom interview with a war survivor in another country. Think about even what's going on in the Ukraine right now, how much students can learn from anyone who has lived through any type of war, and help them better understand our own history and the wars of this country. So that's just a way of making that personal connection and helping them understand something like that. The next one here, instead of the Edgar Allan Poe author study worksheet packet, and by the way, that was mine, language arts teacher here. And y'all, Edgar Allan Poe was one of the most interesting authors that I ever taught. And for me to give them a packet, which was busy work, is really something I'm embarrassed of. This is something that I would not do again, and I could definitely do better today. So what if instead of just doing a packet on the author, they did a collaborative and interactive online ebook about the life of Edgar Allan Poe and published it for a global audience? How much stickier is the learning going to be when they do things like that, when they're creating, when they're collaborating, when we're tapping into those 4 C's? And that last one, I don't know if I have any social studies teachers here, but I tried to hit on all of the major subjects, but labeling and coloring a paper map of the capitals of the United States. And I always tell people, I used to color some pretty maps when I was in school. I don't know about you, but I was that kid that brought all the colors. I had the markers, the map pencils, I had everything. And I could color a great map, but do not ask me where anything is, because coloring those maps did not teach me geography. In fact, I think I was already talking to Donna before we started about my challenges with direction. You don't ever want to follow me anywhere. If we're all driving to a restaurant for lunch, I should never lead. I am the one that gets lost. But take that idea of the old school map. And now what if instead they did a class created Google Earth tour project, touring the capitals of the United States and shared with classes in the US? That's so easy to do. And y'all, Google Earth is super cool. And how much better would they understand the actual places that we're talking about and where those capitals are? And they could even teach this to younger grades as well. Let's take the biography, right? I have an example here, a written biography of Winston Churchill, but any type of writing that's a biography. What if instead our students had a public class website on inspiring historical figures, both past and present, in which additional content is added throughout the year? And I can imagine this as a conversational thing that my students would come in and say, "Hey, Miss Bell, I watched this movie about this guy named Steve Jobs last night. Is he an inspiring historical figure?" Well, let's talk about that. What's our criteria for an inspiring historical figure? And does he meet that? To really make those connections between past and present, but to create something that's living and that's not a one and done type of assignment. All right, next up, science fair. Y'all, science fair is one of the most impressive things that I've seen students create. And we do typically still see the trifold poster display. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand we got to have a display, and most of the time it is, some kind of poster. But what if kids created an interactive website and blog about their science fair project? And the whole thing was there, including the hypothesis, the data, video of their experiments, the reflection, milestones, conclusion, and a place to get comments, to get feedback from people who are outside of just the ones who attend science fair. I think that could be a really powerful upgrade for the science fair project. And then the next one, a worksheet, worksheet about the scientific method. Y'all, you don't learn things like the scientific method just by doing a worksheet, right? That's one of those things that you really learn by doing. You go through the method. And Genius Hour is one way you can do that. Genius Hour project, where they would develop a prototype of a new product that solves a real world problem. So lots of different ways to just kind of spark this conversation between the old static ideas that we did in the classroom versus creating something that is more dynamic. So the DNA of dynamic learning that you see here includes risk-taking, breaking barriers and bad habits, connecting and sharing, continuous learning, curating resources, sharing your voice, unleashing creative thinking, going global, and empowering your students. And essentially all of those bullet points right there are chapters in the book, but this is the meat and potatoes of everything that I do. So when I was putting this framework together, I essentially just started putting together everything that I've learned over the years working as a tech coach, both in a school district and then regionally and then globally. What are the things that I say all the time? What are the things that I want to see in the classroom, and trying to put that into a meaningful framework that can help teachers. So I also made this graphic. Don't tell on me because I'm pretty sure it now breaks copyright. But when I was writing the book, I did this blog post called "The Game of School: We Change, Our Students Lose." If you watched Game of Thrones, you might catch that, but that little Bitmoji there was available at the time. I don't think you can do that anymore, but really that's the truth of it. And if any of you attended my keynote at OKSTE, that I talked a lot about this idea that school has become a game for so many students, and they either learn how to master the game or they're kind of floundering. And unfortunately, the game is not always about learning. It's sometimes about compliance and about sitting in your chair and writing your name on your paper and turning your work in on time and bringing in Kleenex for extra credit, and not really about the things that can help students improve and learn. So let's dig into this because I have a lot of slides. If you're looking at the slide deck, you may be wondering how I'm going to make it through, but I will, I promise. We're going to talk about the dynamic learning model. And of course, at the center is learning, right? In fact, if you look at this, you will not see the word technology on this anywhere. And that is by design. This is not about technology. This is about the learning. And so we always want to put learning at the center of what we are doing and creating. And that gray circle around dynamic learning is the 4 C's. Anytime I go into any classroom and I see something amazing, I guarantee you they are hitting at least one, if not more, of the 4 C's. It's just, to me, it's foundational. So I talk a lot about that, and I try to get teachers just to start thinking as they're planning, am I hitting any of the 4 C's? And then those little icons, those color-coded icons you see right there, those are the characteristics that we're going to tap into in just a moment. So I'm going to explain those 5 characteristics. And then that outer ring, that's kind of the part we won't get to today, but that's the entire lesson planning cycle. So purposeful planning, focused on learning outcomes, fearless implementation, facilitated with finesse, honest reflection, and share with the world. So let's get into those essential components, the things that you need to create a dynamic learning experience, the 4 C's, right? Communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. I'm not going to read this to you, but I did give you some resources here about the 4 C's, but I know this is probably not new for a lot of people. And there are different iterations, 5 C's, 6 C's, lots of things. To me, I can always still kind of fit them all back into these 4. So I wanted to keep things simple. If you know anything about me, if you follow my blog or listen to my podcast, I'm a practical girl. I like to keep things as easy as possible, and I don't want to overcomplicate them. The other thing that I included in these essential components are the standards. And for me, I mentioned the ISTE standards, which is International Society for Technology and Education. These are the student standards, but I'm also talking to schools across the globe when I'm sharing this, and this is a common denominator that I can use. Your own standards for your subject area and grade level would also fit in here. Those are definitely things that we need to consider. This is just kind of giving us some common ground to think of. But if you look at the ISTE standards, you already see the 4 C's are written all over this. So we've already got a lot of overlap. All right, let's get into the characteristics. So this is the framework. This is available as a PDF if you want to download it and look at it more closely. But I'm going to walk you through each one of these: beyond the bell, beyond the grade level and subject area, beyond the walls, beyond the tools, and beyond the due date. So as I was writing and putting this together, the word dynamic naturally, I think, came to me as a comparison. Static versus dynamic is something we see in a lot of places, but I used to teach language arts and I used to teach static and dynamic characters. And so that was something that came to me. But then when I started thinking about what's the commonality between all these characteristics, And it's about breaking boundaries and going beyond what we thought we could do. And so that's why Beyond has kind of come to the forefront here. The other thing that occurred to me is the idea of lesson nutrition facts, much like we would look at the nutrition facts when we're shopping in the grocery store. You pick up something and you're like, how much fat is in this? How many calories? How much sugar? How hard am I going to have to work out if I decide to eat this? Is what I do. And that to me, means a lot when I think, what if teachers put their lesson plans on a shelf and other people could pick those up and evaluate it based on the nutritional value of that lesson? What would that look like? And I don't mean this is an evaluation tool at all, so please don't misread me. It's really just a metaphor to get you thinking, like, what if another teacher picked up my lessons on a shelf? What would it say? How nutritional is the learning in my classroom? So really, we are just pulling ideas and opportunities together into something practical. That's what dynamic learning is all about. So I'm going to break down each of these characteristics for you. So the first one is Beyond the Bell. And looking back, I almost wish I had named this something else, because so many people think that this means homework, and it doesn't. It doesn't mean something that just happened after the bell. It's that lifelong learning mindset. It's that growth mindset that means learning can happen anytime, anywhere, and students can own it. That it's not something that that learning doesn't just happen within the four walls of the classroom. I want kids to think that, hey, I'm on the bus home Googling a Minecraft trick, and that's learning. I want them to recognize it. So how can we encourage students to think of learning as something that goes beyond the school day, and even beyond the building, beyond anything that the teacher gives them or shows them? So some strategies to move beyond the belt, well, talking it out, discussion, asking your students about their learning. What do you like? What do you struggle with? What would you learn if you had complete control over time and place? And then student-centered or student-created learning goals. I don't know how many of you have students set goals for your classroom or even share personal goals, but there's a lot of great ways to do this and to help students really think about the power of goal setting, which, by the way, is a research-based strategy, but what it looks like when I reach a goal. And so one way to do that is vision boards. So vision boards are not new. I create vision boards, typically do one every year around December, January, as I'm thinking about the next year. And, I'm old school with it. I got foam board and washi tape. In fact, I got some washi tape sitting right here. Other things in there. And, it occurred to me, why don't we have students doing this? If this is helping me reach my goals, how awesome would that be for students? And so I was like, you know what? We don't have to get out the glitter and glue to do this either. We can do this in Google Slides, and it's super easy. So if you click right here, I have a blog post on how to do this. This is just a little sample that I made, but being able to layer those images on there, and it's just visual goal setting. That's what a vision board is. Another thing I love is Google Keep. And even if you're not using Google Keep or use something else, but this is just a place to track learning goals. So students could create a digital place to write their goals and to track them. What does it look like when I reach a goal? Setting those milestones, and even the little ones, even if we're not going to get into the tool like this, even the little ones can set goals. What's one thing that would make today great? What are 3 things that would make today great? And I know exactly what my middle schoolers would do. They say, "Oh, Miss Bell, I want to make an A in your class." Okay, what does that mean? What does that look like? I don't want a goal that says I want to make an A. I want to know and be able to do. So I really want kids to make those connections to learning. Our next beyond is beyond the grade level and subject area. And this one sounds a little ominous when you're like, Kasey, I can't teach anything else. This is not really about teaching anything else, but finding some wiggle room in the curriculum to help kids learn things that maybe go beyond just that prescribed curriculum for your grade level and your subject area. Because unfortunately, our education system in this country has created a factory model of putting kids on the conveyor belt, and you learn this, and this, and then you move on down the line into the next grade. But learning's not that clean. Learning's not that pretty. And I want kids to have at least an idea of what they may be interested in when they graduate. And unfortunately, so many kids only know what they've been taught or told to be interested in. So where can we find ways to do that? Maker projects are great for that. I don't know how many of you have gotten into maker spaces and maker projects. You don't have to have fancy equipment. You can have cardboard and do maker space, and really just getting kids to tinker and build and engineer and craft. Genius Hour that I mentioned earlier, if you're not familiar with Genius Hour, it's not something you can do in every classroom all the time, but it is definitely a passion project where kids solve a problem, create a prototype of some sort, and then by the end there are either creating a performance or some type of presentation to share what they've learned. But these are big project-based learning types of projects. Entrepreneurial learning, something that I talked about in my keynote was also how many entrepreneurs are now in the world, and the likelihood that some of our kids may become entrepreneurs or part of that contract working space. You have to be willing to take some ownership and learn things on your own, to risk take. And those are all things that we can cultivate in our classroom and that are good for any learners. And design thinking. If you're not familiar with the design thinking protocol, it comes out of Stanford, and it's a really powerful way to approach a problem as opposed to just, hey, let's just list out how we can solve this. It really takes you through some powerful steps. Our next beyond is beyond the walls, which we are doing right now. And I was even mentioning this to Kurt earlier, how much more open the world is to connecting like this than they were prior to the pandemic. And that's a good thing, because this does allow us to do different types of learning opportunities in our classrooms. And this was something, again, I was talking about way before 2020, and so many teachers were not taking the opportunity to do this. And when I talk about beyond the walls, I'm really talking about two sides of the wall. I'm talking about bringing the outside world into your classroom, as well as giving your students an opportunity to share what they are doing and creating with the outside world and to get feedback. So I believe that every student at every grade level should have opportunities to connect and learn globally. That's the way the world works. So as we think about this, some strategies to do this, publishing student work for a global audience is a game changer. This is huge. It's something that I learned I learned a lot about with my kids, and that was a really long time ago when I first tried this. But kids will care more about the quality of their work when they know somebody besides the teacher is going to look at it. And then being able to bring the outside world in through, virtual field trips, classroom connections. You can really do just about anything. The way we can connect is so easy. All you need is, internet access and a device with a camera, and you can do it. It wasn't that long ago that many of us, myself included, had to facilitate that with some really expensive equipment in one special room in a school. And now we can do it from any classroom. So the fact that we can do this and it doesn't cost anything, we have to take advantage of this opportunity so kids can see the value in making these types of connections to learn. And last but not least, we have Beyond the Tools. And this one is what I like to call the easiest of them all. I kind of learned this as I began implementing and creating resources, but this is really about moving beyond that substitution level, using digital tools to do new things. Just going paperless is not enough. As my friend Alice Keeler says, paperless is not pedagogy, but we want to go deeper, further, and extend the learning. So we want to consider, how we can use these tools to do different things that weren't on paper. I think that's one of the things that is interesting when you try to translate it, because the first iteration usually is, oh, we used to write our essays on a piece of paper, so now we're going to write our essays in Microsoft Word or Google Docs, and we move on beyond that. And now we are looking at, how can we tell a story, that it doesn't necessarily have to be just text, that we have multimedia, that we have all kinds of ways to bring together a story in a new way. So I want you to think beyond what you think every tool can do. And one of the things that I like to do is just think of this like a continuum. I know many of you are probably familiar with like the SAMR model and others that are out there, which are great, but I like to simplify that even more, because I have seen SAMR and other models intimidate teachers and really overcomplicate it when it doesn't have to be complicated. There are plenty of reasons to keep some things at a substitution level. So for instance, when I wrote my books, right, I was substituting Google Docs for paper, but it began to move the needle when I started using suggested edits and comments and getting feedback from my editors and things like that. So it's a continuum, and it's not always going to be at that highest level. That is not always the goal. I don't want any teacher to be intimidated by technology and think that everything you do is now supposed to be this super innovative thing. No, what you're doing should be engaging, but also help students reach the learning goals. If they're not reaching the learning goals, then it is a complete waste of time. So we don't ever want to use technology for technology's sake. We definitely want to keep going. The other thing that I like to tell people is that there is no digital tool that is inherently creative or innovative. You can never say, oh, because you used, and even if I said Chat GPT, you are creative. No, you can still use that in a very mundane way. So we really have to think past that. You're never going to see me create a list. Here are the tools that are going to transform your classroom, because it's never about the tool. It's about the learning. So some strategies to move beyond the tools. This is one that I talk about a lot on the podcast and on the blog. And that is using Google Slides to do things that are not presentations. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with this, but I have created an ebook now, 30 things you didn't know Google Slides could do. And it's about all of those extra things to think about, like creating ebooks and stop motion animation and infographics and timelines and all kinds of things that are not just about creating a slide presentation like I'm using it for right now. Any questions? I know I have a lot of content, so there's a lot going on. Okay, I will wait. Feel free to ask me questions. I may have to pause. I think my my voice is getting a little light right now, so I have to get some water. The other thing that I talk a lot about is empowering students with voice and choice. I talk a lot about different ways to do that. Choice boards, we're going to get to those in just a second, but I want you to think of all of the various places that we can give students some choice. They could choose their own digital tool. Now, never do that without building the digital toolbox that they actually know what is available. But students choosing their own devices right now, I'm sure everyone sitting here is in front of a computer or a laptop, and you probably at least have a phone next to you as well. And there are certain tasks that you will choose one or the other to do. And that's something that students need to know. That's a skill. This is faster, this is easier on my phone, this is faster, this is easier on my laptop. Students choosing their own learning goals that we talked about, students choosing their own reading, topic, project, problem, and then giving students choice with learning menus or choice boards. Those words are interchangeable, by the way, in my mind anyway. I first learned them as learning menus, and then I have now sort of mostly started calling them choice boards. But the bottom line with choice boards, choice. That's it. They're not brand new. These have been around for many years. They were around before I even started teaching. And it's a differentiated form of learning that gives students a menu, a list, which can take many forms of activities to complete. I have 3 examples right here. All of these are clickable if you want to check these out. And these were the ones that were mentioned in the first book. I have since created so many choice board resources too on Shake Up Learning. In fact, had a podcast that came out just today on choice boards again. So if you're really liking this idea, there's way more to explore. But this changed my classroom. Choice boards changed my classroom, and they really changed my mindset about what my classroom could look like as a secondary teacher. I think a lot of secondary teachers may see choice boards or stations kind of as an elementary thing. It's not. You can do these at any level, and really any subject area. It doesn't matter. It's so flexible. It can be for a short activity or a big project. And they don't have to be super fancy. They can be. There are tons of templates out there to do it, but there are lots of ways to use these. I did create a little ebook too that you can go get the free download if you want to explore and learn more about what you can do with choice boards and get some free templates. Even did a podcast episode about what was it? We were calling it home learning. Some people were calling it remote learning, but this is just another resource and something to think about. Not necessarily that any of us want to go back to that, but Laura Steinbrink lived in a rural community that couldn't send laptops home or anything like that. So they hand delivered. The teachers rode buses and hand delivered paper assignments. And Laura actually did some paper choice boards, and her story is pretty unique. So I wanted to give that to you as a resource. All right, moving on. I said tools was the last one. This is the last one. Beyond the due date is the last one. And this is not, do not confuse this at all with giving students extra time. That is not what this is about. This is about capitalizing on learning sparks, on those moments when kids really love what they're doing, really what they're learning. And unfortunately, I feel like in my class, especially my first few years of teaching, I didn't do this enough. So, I think about those assignments where students maybe didn't want to turn it in, not because they didn't do it, but because they were actually loving it. And what if they could keep working on it? What if they could keep learning even after you got your grade in the grade book? What if you could take on the role of a mentor to ask them about the things that they're interested in, to encourage them? And so this really just brings us full circle in terms of that beyond the bell and that lifelong learning mindset that we were talking about, so that kids can continue to create and grow in different directions and really, take that idea, maybe that spark that they had that was in your curriculum, and take it in a direction where they want to learn. Maybe, I think as a language arts teacher, maybe it's an author that sparked their interest, and maybe that gets them reading more. Maybe that gets them into something else more. Or maybe you're doing a little student friendship matchmaking. You've got some students who might be interested in coding. Hey, did you know so-and-so in my other class is into coding too? Y'all should check this out, or hang out and go find these resources. Really just encouraging kids to learn and get back to that mindset as well. So social learning and collaboration, sharing your voice and sharing your story, and building that lifelong learning mindset. That idea that we should always be learning is something that this last characteristic will really hit on. So really, I know that that's a lot of information. I was talking really fast, but all I want you to do is just to start small, just to think of one lesson where you could go beyond. It's not about, reinventing the wheel. It's really just, okay, maybe I can make this tweak. Maybe I could try some choice. Maybe I could try setting goals with my students. There's just so many different things that we could try. Now, y'all have been super quiet and everybody has their cameras off. So, as a speaker, it makes it really hard to know if anybody is still listening to me. But I would love to answer questions or go back to anything else that you had an interest in. Still listening. Thank you. Super quiet. So I do have a lot of additional resources, including, like I said, kind of the next iteration of this, because I do so much Google stuff, was to talk about how to take this framework and apply it using Google tools. So I have lots of free resources, but also in the blended learning with Google book, really just taking that next step and breaking down each of those characteristics and how you can use Google tools to meet those. And I even have a free toolkit on that as well. So I have several links here that you can go back and explore. But I realized I was talking faster. I was worried about time, but I do have plenty of time to go back and share anything that you have questions about or any of the strategies that maybe you want to see. The ebook link to Lisa, it's all in the presentation. So, and I've already mentioned, I think, at least 2 different ebooks, but if you go to shakeuplink.link/Titans, that will give you the presentation. And there are links within here. So that this first little quick start guide that I said was the cheat sheet for dynamic learning, and it's 20 pages long. That one is there. And then if you keep going on to the other ones are in here too, but there's a link to this post and this infographic. There is a link to this infographic right here on the slides. And when I get to the choice board part, and I'm happy to go back and show something. I did kind of skim over. Choice boards tends to be the thing that everybody wants to come back to. So if anybody has questions about that, I'm happy to share. So this particular one right here, if you open this up, this is a template for novel study that I created, and you can go make a copy of it and use it, change it, fit it to, even if you don't teach English or novels, you can use this. It's not anything fancy. But it is there. This is another one from my friend Tommy Spall in Texas, like a restaurant style menu. So he created this. It seems tech focused, but stay with me. Tommy's a tech coach, and he created this for his teachers to make it their own. So you can click on any option here, and he's got project rubrics and other things embedded in here too. And this last one is a bingo board. I will tell you, do not give a bingo board to first time choice board users. This is too many choices, but this one was actually for teachers, for my friends Amber Tiemann and Melinda Miller, for teachers to do some things in the summer. But you could easily adapt this once kids are used to choice to some extra credit, or what to do when you finish work early and things like that. And then this was the link. If you click right here, you can get the ebook for the choice boards. Sorry, I didn't know which one y'all were talking about with the ebooks. I have a problem with adding so much stuff and sharing so much stuff. I know it can be overwhelming, but there is the link again. If you need it, take a picture of it, write it down, whatever you do. It's not going anywhere. You can come back to it. And there's a place to leave me feedback. I'd love to hear from you. I hope I have given y'all some new ideas and new choices. But like I said, I'm happy to go back to anything or share any additional resources or answer any questions.
Cecilia has her hand raised. Did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Hi, Kasey. So I clicked a couple of the links, and like the first one I clicked was the one for the digital choice boards, and it took me to your blog. And then it took me to Twitter finally. And then I tried one of the other ones, and it said to put your email address in to get the ebook, but then I got a 404 error.
Okay. Can you tell me which one that was?
For the error?
Yeah. Which one gave you, which ebook it was? Was it the choice board or was it the one at the very beginning?
I think that one was at the very beginning.
Okay. I will go back and check that. That is something I can't fix right now on the fly, but I thank you for telling me that. I didn't know it wasn't working. I can go back and try. Sorry, I'm trying to get back there. This one.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you should be able to get it, and you are joining my email list to get that. That's the freebie, but you can always unsubscribe to. But I will check that. I'm sorry you had that problem.
Oh, no problem. I appreciate you doing all of this.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Kasey, I think we all appreciate you so much, and you are so awesome. And for those of you that don't know, Kasey was our keynote at our annual conference this past fall and did a fantastic job. So as always, you did a wonderful job today, and we appreciate it so much. And I just want to say thank you for being here today to everyone. And we appreciate the opportunity to collaborate with OPSRC. Kurt, just let everybody know on these Tech Titan presentations, because they're so important and so useful. And I know you can get overwhelmed with all of the information, but just take it one bite at a time, and it will transform the way you teach. And a little bit about OKSTE, that's our main goal, is to assist teachers to transform classrooms using, ed tech and student voice and choice and professional development that helps them develop their craft as professionals. So it's all about the students, and it's about helping teachers help those students. So I dropped my contact information in there. I did want to let you know that we are taking calls for presentations at our annual conference, and you'll get information about we have 4 keynotes this year, and they're all tremendous. So go on our website and find out about OKSTE if you don't know. But thanks again, Kasey, and everyone that attended, and Kurt and OPSRC for the opportunity.
Yep.
I'll turn it back to you, Kurt.
We will post the video and slides up on our website. It'll take a week or so, but we'll get it up there for you to check that out. It's opsrc.net/technology. Thanks again, Kasey.
Thank you so much, Kurt and Donna. And yes, the conference is great. So y'all go to the conference.